before First Christian started, I belonged to another church. I had become a little disillusioned with that church, and I was falling away from going to church altogether. Pastor Johnson, being my best friend at the time, he had he had became pastor, but he was pastor at the United Methodist Church. Now, I knew I wasn't going back to United Methodist. I was raised United Methodist. From United Methodist, I went to a Pentecostal church. A lot of what I learned about tithing and about praising the Lord and things like that, I got from Pentecostal. But things started happening where I felt I was outgrowing that. Pastor Johnson at the time was telling me that God was leading him to start a new church. But he was still pastor at a United Methodist church. And he said, just give me about a year and we'll see what God will do. Within that year's time, I started sitting under his Bible studies and things like that. And when he started First Christian in '91, I was a part of the original board that came together and started planning for the new church. That was exciting. We didn't know what to expect. I had never been on a ground level of a church. I always thought a church, when you came to church, had been in existence for years before you got there. So to be a part of the ground level of the church was very exciting. We didn't know what to expect. There were obstacles in our way. I remember the first couple of years of our church, I always felt people didn't take us seriously, or we weren't legitimate as a church. But as the church grew and our membership grew, then people started to take us seriously as a church. I became an elder at FC3 in 1999. During the elders, as the church progressed further, before Pastor K became pastor, I was elevated to pastor at that time. And I used to be board chairman. I went, along with board chairman, I was on the finance committee. I was the one that opened up our first account. I was the one that was in charge of what we call Malachi now. We handled all the finances. We did all the accounting for the administration. I was in charge of finance when we purchased our land. So I was in all meetings dealing with the purchase of the land and the purchase of the building. Anything dealing with administration, I was in charge of. Also during that time, I was also elevated with the eldership, training the elders during that time. Also, as I said earlier, board chairman as well, working with the administration in the board capacity.
What comes to mind is how they cheated me years ago when we did the superlatives. And I think he won the best shout. And I really had an issue with that Elder B, but that's okay now because we're going to be sitting by each other. We're going to see who shouts the best.
Elderberry is a piece of work.
Grump.
How do you have grumpy old man and the most compassionate person all rolled up into one body? That is Elderberry.
You know, I grew up with Elderberry. Elderberry was my neighbor. He was a young child. So but to have a relationship with the spiritual Elderberry was awesome.
We kind of started off kind of strange because I didn't feel like I had to connect with him. You know, I kind of felt distant from him at one point. And then all of a sudden, Pastor Johnson brought us together as ministers one evening. We were having our meeting and he brought us together and he said, go to someone or talk to someone that you really, you know, in the ministry here, because it was a smaller group then. He said, just go to someone that you don't feel like you have the greatest relationship with on the team and just, you know, see what's going on there and kind of see if you can break down that barrier. And we both walked toward each other. And it was weird because from that point on, we just sort of clicked. It was like we went to each other and said, I don't know what it is, but we just don't seem to have connect. And we couldn't figure out what it was because we never did have any problems. We never had any issues or anything like that. But we just weren't connecting. And ever since then, we've been connected.
I remember a few years ago, I don't know how the conversation came up, but Elder B said, when I met you, do you know I didn't trust you? And it didn't offend me. It didn't offend me. And I said, well, that's okay, because when I first saw you, you were standoffish. But now I believe he really loves me. He's not going to admit it, but I believe he loves me. He was the leader of the elders group, so I've worked under him. But I appreciate him. And doing some of our health challenges, we've gotten, I think, even closer because we can relate to each other.
Barry and Ricky were best friends, which really they were more like brothers, to be honest. And so in many ways, Barry to me is really like my brother-in-law, who we're now in ministry together. And the thing about it, you know, if you look back when I started dating Ricky and Barry and Charmaine, we were all together. I just wouldn't imagine in 1,000 years we would be where we are today, doing what we're doing today.
Elder Barry was one of the first ones who I grew acquainted with when I came to First Christian. In fact, he was the predecessor to me on the Board of Stewards, and so I was able to step into that role after he left, and so he did a lot of tutelage and mentoring of me in that role.
He lives and breathes First Christian. You know, he's been there since we started in the basement of a house to begin, and he has never wavered. He has never left.
Elder Barry is my right-hand man. Whenever I have a question or I'm unsure of anything, I go to Elder B. Elder B always remind me of administrative professional day, church anniversary, Pastor Queen's birthday, Pastor K's birthday. He's always coming to me saying, you know what, sis, this is what we need to do. We need to do something.
Elderberry is that child that other people can't talk about. Do not talk about Elderberry because we're going to defend him to the most. But when it's just us, oh, he gets it. He gets it because he's that grandpa that loves tradition. He's the senior member that loves tradition, and he holds tightly to that tradition. And sometimes we need to pull him into change, dragging and kicking, but he'll always come in line when he realizes, oh, that was good. Okay, that was good. But he coming dragging and kicking.
I remember we went to the pastor's retreat, and he was like, I don't really know all this youth ministry stuff. I mean, you know, I'm kind of old school. But once we started talking and sharing some of their challenges and how youth ministry and how the church could help them, I tell you, Elder Barry was so good about, that makes sense. I get it. I know now why we need to set up certain things and set stuff aside for the kids.
One of the things that I admire about Elder Barry is that since he moved out of the Board of Stewards role, he has been, in fact, we had a term in the military, we called it road gang, retired on active duty. We used that term for those individuals who would sort of show up and they had the opportunity to kind of give you their feelings of life and these kinds of things. But Elder Barry, in his role as board chair and other areas of leadership at First Christian, he's kind of moved into that retirement role. And he does a great job at it, mind you. And so that's another thing I need to learn from him is how do I move into retirement while serving in First Christian in the capacity that he has moved into.
You know, what I can think of Elder Barry is that he would often come to the classes unprepared, and Richard Johnson would chew him out. That's what I remember. Richard Johnson ain't play. I don't care who he was. And Barry was his heart. I mean, Barry was like the brother from another brother, but he ain't play. When you had to assign, he had to do something, you better come correct. And poor Barry, sometimes he just didn't.
I will tell you this one time. This is when Rick and I were dating, right? So come to find out that he and I had just started dating. There was an old girlfriend upstairs who didn't know they had broke up. Okay? But Barry knew she was in the house. So Ricky didn't want our paths to cross, right? So anyhow, had all worked out, you know. I won. So anyway, this is down the road. We getting on down the road later on. And so the subject comes up again about, hey, you remember the time of Mount Olive? And I was like, what about Mount Olive? And so Ricky was like, oh, nothing. And so I looked at Barry. Barry, one thing about Barry, he can't lie. And Barry, all you gotta do is look at him and you can tell whether or not he's telling the truth or if he's lying. And I looked at him and knew his lips was beginning to form a lie. And so I said, what really happened over at Mount Olive? Barry starts singing like a bird. he's told all of Ricky business. Ricky was standing there go like, I can't even tell you anything because you'd be singing like a bird. And then he would say, well, what I'm supposed to do when she looked at me that way? You're not supposed to look back at her. You're just supposed to turn your head. So he sung like a bird. He told me everything that went on.
That's my guy. That's a father figure. He was my dad's best friend. He was a friend to my mother. Personal notes, of course, because with Elder Barry, he was always there. He was there before my father passed away, and he was there after.
I say that in humor about him being retired, but he has been a stalwart in this ministry and everything that he's done. We have had a bond and a friendship. Families have gone on vacation together. We've done a lot of things together, and so it's a long-lasting friendship that I've had with him and his family. Love him to death.
Elder Barry, we go back many, many, many years. He is an exalter. He's a prayer warrior. He's an administrator. And he helped me to get the finances in. But he is a homeboy. He loves family, his extended family. He's a traveler. He probably getting ready to go on a cruise now. He enjoys life and that more abundantly. And he has been also woven in this very fabric of this church from the beginning until this point. And that's my brother. That's my brother. Elder Barry is my brother. And again, we go way back, and I just love him.
He's never done it, but I'm pretty sure he could give a word. The way he prays and the way he teaches, he could preach if he really wanted to. I'm talking to you, Uncle. You could preach if you wanted to. He could preach if he wanted to. I mean, but he's literally done everything in the church, from counting money to directing the choir to leading whatever ministry, rebirth, even teaching the AKI. He has literally done every single thing in the church, and it's just amazing that he's still here.